At the outset, a privileged few had full rights, while many others were forced to find their own pathways to equality. Then a wave of women stood their ground. Faced with many dead ends, they drove relentlessly along narrow roads and around uncharted bends, until at long last one group's great accomplishment led them straight away to better but still uneven and unequal days. A second wave made progress, but faced many obstacles and came up short of its goal. It's been a man's world for a long time, but maybe someday we'll be able to say that equally so, it's a woman's world. A show which looks at any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Featuring Ali Naithani. Here's Ali.
Welcome to It's a Woman's World. I'm going to get started right away and introduce our guests. We have with us Dr. Ellen Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy is the Executive Director of World Without Genocide at William Mitchell College of Law. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we also have with us Kalyan Carlson. Kalyan is a senior at Mounds High School, and she attended the Summer Institute, and she was a 2012 participant that the World Without Genocide program sponsored on human trafficking, and we're going to talk to you more about that today. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Also, we have Lois Nordling. Lois is a member of Delta Kappa Gamma, which is an organization of women educators. And this is across 18 countries, as I understand, and we happen to have 8 chapters in the metropolitan area.
That's correct.
Excellent. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Jess Zaiken. Jess is a third-year law student at William Mitchell College of Law. You've also been described as a planner, presenter, recruiter, and part of the conference in 2011 and 2012. Yep. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate that we are going to discuss a very, very important topic, which is human trafficking. And Ellen, would you get us started and help us understand what is human trafficking?
Human trafficking is the use of people through force to exploit them for either sexual purposes or to use their labor. There are an estimated 1 million people here in the United States who are being trafficked. Of those, 100,000 are children between the ages of 12 and 16 who are being trafficked for sex. Those are people who are here because they are citizens. These are our own young people. Minnesota has the 13th highest proportion of sex trafficking in the country, a truly horrific problem. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we at World Without Genocide have been focusing on raising awareness about this issue. Given the danger that Minnesota's girls are placed into, we feel that it's important to let people know about this challenge, mm-hmm. to recognize the signs, and then to understand how to take action. We've developed outreach programs for educators, and Lois will speak about that. Mm-hmm. Our Summer Institute that Kalyan will talk about for high school students will educate them about signs to watch so that they do not become victims to perpetrators of this terrible crime. Mm-hmm. And then we engage law school students mm-hmm. in learning about these challenges so that they can become informed as they move into their professional lives.
So Ellen, I just want to call out something. You said that Minnesota is the 13th.
Correct. 13th highest proportion in the country.
That blows me away.
Yes.
Because I think, and the reason why I want to share this right now is that, you know, living a comfortable life, well, in Minnesota, really this stuff is happening here? But you're telling me it
yes.
absolutely is happening
It's
here.
happening in our metropolitan cities, in our suburbs, in our rural areas, mm-hmm. primarily to girls, as I said, between 12 and 16.
Okay.
The average age at which a Minnesota girl is trafficked is 13. Mm-hmm. And these are girls who are ordinary girls. Mm-hmm. who, for various reasons, have become vulnerable mm-hmm. to predators.
Okay. And so World Without Genocide, as you spoke about, sponsors a summer institute. So what are you hoping to do with that? What is the purpose of that?
We actually have 2 summer institutes. Okay. One is for educators and leaders, mm-hmm. and we are trying to reach broadly throughout the community to reach people who are in positions of leadership in the faith community and civic organizations, educators at all levels, so that they'll understand the magnitude of the problem and look out for signs of this within their own particular professional as well as personal networks. Perhaps most critically, our Summer Institute for high school students is designed to let them understand the scope of the problem, but beyond that, how to develop their own voice for advocacy. If we expect to make significant changes in human rights issues in the world, it has to come from Kalyan's generation. For Lois and for me, we really have left the world in a terrible mess. But there's great hope with the generation that Kalyan and that Jess represent.
Well, Kalyan, so tell us what got you interested in this topic, and also it's the summer, and so vacation time, right? So what drew you to this?
I jumped at the opportunity to get involved within my own community, and I know this issue spans throughout the world and throughout our country, but at this level, I just have to take what I can and do what I can with what I have. So when I heard about the Summer Institute, I thought that it was perfect for me because it was a way to learn about the world outside of the textbook situation, and it was a way to find out what I could do next, take the next step, and also to get me interested in what I want to do with my life and learn about these situations that I want to prevent with my generation and with those that come after.
And did you share this, that you were doing this with other friends of yours, or did other, like your friends, did they inquire, like, why are you doing this? Did you get any feedback, or? Yeah,
a couple of my friends, they were really interested in it. They were like, that's so cool. I can't believe you did that. And it was kind of short notice because it was in the summer, and a lot of them were on vacation and doing all these other things in the summer. And but I just had to take a moment and just do it.
And so, if other students were out there thinking, well, maybe that's something I'd like to do, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to get out of it? And
I would tell them that it's so worth the 3 days, that the amount of information that you can take in and the impact it can have on your own way of thinking and the way that you approach the world around you, I think that it can make all the difference.
And I think, Ellen, wow, as Kalyan just spoke, wow, more than the textbook, right?
Exactly.
The immersing herself. What a beautiful way of expressing that you really put yourself right into the experience of what this is. So, great. Well then, Jess, please tell us as well, as a third-year law student, how you've been involved and the impact this has had on you.
I've been involved with World Without Genocide for about 2 years now, and the reason that I got involved is because when I was Kalyan's age, nothing like this existed. I'm the descendant of Holocaust victims and Holocaust survivors, and when I was younger, the way that I paid tribute to them was just by learning everything that I possibly could, but I never took that second step where you go from knowing and remembering to actively doing something about it. So this was just, it's like the stars aligned for me when I came to Mitchell, and it was also World's first year at Mitchell. That's why I'm involved. I don't know if, I can't speak for the other law students that work with the organization, and I think the reason that we stay involved is that you meet these people, and particularly for me, you meet the students that come to our Summer Institute, and it's just a completely humbling experience to see what they do in 3 days and to see what they go on and do once the Institute is over.
Okay, great. And Lois, how about you? Tell us your interest and involvement.
Well, certainly as a professional educator, our goal is to enhance educational opportunities for all of our students. And as our organization is made up of both retired and current educators, and we are striving to, again, have programs, projects, things like that that will benefit our communities. And last year, we had an opportunity through our state conference to hear Dr. Kennedy, and certainly saw it as an eye-opening opportunity, because just as you reacted to, how can that be? How can that be here in Minnesota? How can that be? We see ourselves as individuals who have day-to-day contact with students. We have that opportunity, whether as a classroom teacher, a school administrator, a school nurse, counselor, a social worker, to have interactions with students to see, are there some changes in that student's behavior? What about his or her appearance? Are there some changes in attendance patterns? And so I think for us as an organization, being connected with Ellen's program, we've become more aware of human trafficking and all of the issues associated with that. And so we are deeply committed to making other educators aware of this as well, because we think we're a vital link in helping to stop the whole issue of human trafficking.
If I could interject something, it's really critical to understand where this issue is now in Minnesota. The legal community has been remarkable, particularly Ramsey County Chief Prosecutor John Choi, at prosecuting the perpetrators of this offense. And there are organizations like Breaking Free, run by Vednita Carter, that are fabulous in terms of providing services to those who have been victims. But the missing link is to get at the people who could do something first to protect the students, so that they know when someone is thinking about using them in ways that are utterly illegal and inappropriate. To get to the teachers, as Lois says, to begin to recognize the signs. We have to be able to be on that cutting line, and that's where I think this program will lead.
Well, an interesting point you brought up, Ellen, is so when we see things, right, when we see things that are done that are harmful to people, though, I find sometimes as a society it's hard to step in. So to that point, can you speak to that a little bit? How can you empower people? If you're a teacher, if you're a neighbor, if you see something about someone that seems off, or how do you break that awkwardness and just go in there and address it?
I think it's very difficult, and that's why John Choi's office says, call us.
Okay.
And that's really the safest and most prudent first step.
Okay.
They're the experts. So call the prosecutor, call the police, call an emergency number, so that the right kind of help and the right kind of intervention occurs.
Okay. Okay. We can do something about this, right?
Absolutely.
Individuals
Absolutely.
at the individual level. Okay.
And need to.
And need to.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we are down to about a minute left of our time, but I want to say, if somebody were interested in more information about the Institute, where would they go? How would they find the information?
On the web, worldwithoutgenocide.org.
Okay.
It's that simple. The Institute will be for 3 days in August.
Okay.
We welcome high school students from throughout the state. Last year, I think we had 10 different high schools represented, and we truly would like to expand that.
We have students that come in from Rochester too. They drive up and they stay with Ellen for the whole, like the Institute.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for being here and discussing this very important topic.
Thank you, Holly.
Well, stay with us. Up next, we're going to be talking again to World Without Genocide, and we're going to be talking about a domestic violence conference that they will be hosting in March. We are continuing the conversation with the organization World Without Genocide, and they are sponsoring a conference on March 23rd on the very important topic of domestic violence. So let's begin, and why don't you tell us about yourself?
Sure. My name is Amanda Sicoli. I am expecting my Juris Doctorate from William Mitchell College of Law in spring of 2015, and I have an interest in litigation, but I'm not quite sure what type of litigation yet.
Great.
And I'm Catherine Ward. I'm expecting my Juris Doctorate in fall of 2013. I currently have an interest in elder law and mediation and alternative dispute resolutions.
So when we hear the term Juris Doctorate, Catherine and Amanda, can you tell us what does that mean?
Once we obtain our JD from William Mitchell, we will then be eligible to take the bar, the Minnesota bar exam, and practice the law in the state of Minnesota.
Okay, and so JD, that's Excellent. Well, all the best to you as you continue your education.
Thank you.
And then over here to my right, we have Brittany Nicholls. Welcome back to the show, I want to say to you. And I'd also like to say congratulations as you've recently passed the bar and are now working and practicing as an attorney.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Thank you. And you were with us and have talked to us about your work with World Without Genocide. And you were a volunteer with the organization for almost 2.5 years. And as I understand, you worked greatly on the subject of torture and did some fantastic work in spreading the important need to understand and get the importance of that out.
Yeah, that's right. I've worked on a number of projects at World Without Genocide. Dr. Ellen Kennedy has been great in kind of handing the reins over to me and letting me choose some of the projects that I've really had an interest in, and medically sanctioned torture was one of them, and now kind of shifted focus to the domestic violence arena.
Okay, well, why don't we start off with that, Brittany? Tell us about what the importance and why this conference on March 23rd.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the ladies just before us were talking a lot about sex trafficking. It's a huge issue internationally, nationally, and even locally. In 2000, Congress passed the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act, and at that time they found that trafficking of humans is the largest form of modern-day slavery, and it's the second largest criminal industry today. It's not just in the international arena, it happens here in Minnesota, unfortunately. In 2009, a Minnesota report said that at least 4 male, 387 female, and 197 child sex trafficking victims were discovered by service providers throughout that year. And another report estimates that anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 women and children are involved in prostitution here in Minnesota every day in some way. So
again, it keeps coming back to me that it's in Minnesota. That is mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. We feel, very cushy here, but the numbers are staggering, and I just don't think that we're doing enough to really address these issues as a country. We haven't reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act. We have not provided support for the International Violence Against Women Act or CEDA. So I think that there are a number of ways that we can really step up our game, and here locally, the one way that we're really focusing on that is through this conference.
Okay, and so when we talk about domestic violence, what does, typically think of that as, so it's a man against a woman and some physical abuse. Is that it? Is it more than that?
Well, it can take a number of forms. I think that is probably the standard one that people think of, but it certainly happens in same-sex relationships, and it happens, female against male as well. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be financial. There are a number of ways that domestic violence occurs.
Okay, and there's also, as I've heard, a pattern where if children see it in their parents, then that pattern can continue. Is that something you find?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of people mimic what they've been raised in. So to stop the pattern is really the best way to address the issue.
Okay. Now, Amanda, tell us more about what's going to happen at the conference and what are some of the subjects that'll be covered.
Well, we're actually having 3 different parts to our conference. And we're focusing on local, as Brittany was speaking to, and we're also widening the scope and talking about domestic violence issues in the United States as well as globally. And that will be happening through a panel that we're having of speakers.
And the speakers will be addressing...
They're addressing the domestic violence issues. There's 3 different speakers. One will be addressing domestic violence in Minnesota, and then one in the United States as a whole. And than one internationally as well.
Okay, okay, great. And so if someone is a victim of some type of domestic violence, are there resources out there, or what can they do if they feel like, yeah, that I feel like I might be in this kind of a situation? What would who would they reach out to?
There are a number of great organizations in Minnesota that will be at our conference that you can also find online on our website, worldwithoutgenocide.org. And for domestic violence, you can file for an order of protection, which basically is the court telling your abuser that they have to stop abusing you or your children. But that does have to be in the family situation, a family or household.
Okay.
So if it's not domestic violence with a family member or a household member, then you can use the harassment laws to get help. And primarily that is through a harassment restraining order,
Okay.
Which is also 2 years like a protection order for protection. It's also court ordered. You just have to go fill out forms. And there's a lot of resources available to help women or victims of domestic abuse fill out those forms.
Okay. Sometimes I hear there's a reluctancy to go after those orders or to legally pursue some of that. Why do we see that?
I think a part of it is that it's very scary to be in that situation as a victim. And when you have to go fill out these forms and go seek protection, you have to relive a lot of what that your victimization. So it's scary, and I think that's a big block for people to get protections.
Is it also the power dynamic where the victim is finally taking maybe some control and is executing something that involves the law, that's saying, hey, I'm going to execute some power here where I'm going to send a message to you. Is that part of it?
I think definitely it's hard for victims to really realize that they do have the ability to take power in some of these situations. A lot of people who victimize women and children through abuse or through sex trafficking have a number of ways that they keep people under their wraps, sort of through money and through providing homes for them. And I think it goes back a lot to what you mentioned earlier. There's a pattern if people grew up with this, or if they were entered into this sort of situation early on. I mean, some victims of sex trafficking and also abuse are as young as 10 or 12 years old. I think that
oh my goodness,
they just don't know really a different lifestyle, and many are afraid also to be criminalized by this because prostitution is a crime here. But fortunately in Minnesota, Governor Dayton passed the Safe Harbor Act so that minors are not going to be criminalized for this activity. They will actually be viewed as victims in need of protection.
Okay, great. Wow. So we actually had to get something passed to look at victims that way. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, one of the speakers, Emily Baxter, Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for the Council of Crime and Justice, is going to be speaking actually on that topic.
Okay, great to get more awareness out there. And so going back to the conference, are there also resources out there where people can go to shelters, or if there's, if they're not sure? What if they're not sure and they're thinking, well, I kind of fit the bill here, but I'm not exactly sure. Like, can they call for counseling? Is that?
There are a number of hotlines or shelters that provide those services. There's national hotlines as well as Minnesota hotlines that you can call. And a lot of the organizations will be present at our conference.
Okay.
And there's a list of them also on our website, as I mentioned before. But the Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women has a crisis hotline. There's also, as I mentioned, the National Domestic Violence Hotline and a National Sexual Assault line. And a lot of these shelters actually have what they call emergency crisis hotlines that you can call when you're not sure what to do, to take that first step. Where do I go? What do I do? And they provide resources for that.
Okay, great. And so why don't you tell us a little bit more about the clinic? Give us some of the details.
Sure. The clinic will be held at William Mitchell College of Law on Saturday, March 23rd. The first segment starts at 1 o'clock. It's a career panel. We're going to have 3 fantastic professionals in this area come and speak about, from global to local, issues that are affecting domestic violence and violence against women in general. And then 2, we're partnering with the self-help clinic, the William Mitchell Self-Help Clinic, who usually offers pro se legal form assistance with criminal expungements and family law, but we're expanding that to help fill out orders for protection. And then also around that time, we'll be offering a a career fair of organizations in Minnesota to offer services and also opportunities for jobs and internships and things of that nature.
Okay, great. So is there a website if somebody wanted more information?
Sure. They could visit worldwithoutgenocide.org
Okay.
and contact anybody on that website or just for general information.
Okay, great. Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about was we're all, familiar with this subject. If there's someone out there, again, who's listening to this conversation in domestic violence and is thinking about it, what message would you send out to them if they were someone that maybe felt like, could I possibly be a victim? Or do I know somebody in my life who might? I'm kind of wondering if they're a victim. What would you say to them?
I would say that there's a lot of people that are in the same situation, and there's a lot of people that have asked those questions and wondered what to do and where to go, and that's why there are all of these organizations. And it's just taking that first step, be it going online or making a phone call, or the Minnesota State Legislature website has a lot of information, and just taking that first step to kind of delve in, and then all of a sudden everything will open and you'll have a flood of resources available.
What about you, Brittany?
I agree. I think that, probably people watching do know people who have been victimized through abuse or through sex trafficking, and there are tons of resources available. There are great organizations in the Twin Cities, Breaking Free, just a number of them, even the police departments. St. Paul Police Department has a unit that investigates sex trafficking specifically, and, you can call the police department here. The Duluth Police Department has a great unit doing this as well, and they can provide a lot of support, or come to our clinic and we can also provide those resources.
Absolutely. Okay, well, and then both of you as students, being involved in these subjects, which are not easy subjects, how's that made in your experience or a difference for you?
Well, before I went to law school, I did an internship at a domestic violence shelter. So that first opened my eyes to this awful, awful problem. And while in William Mitchell, I wanted to take advantage of the great organizations on campus while I was still a student. So that was just fantastic that World Without Genocide is on William Mitchell campus and that we can take a part and hopefully make a difference while we're there for 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. What about you, Amanda?
For me, it's really expanded the law school experience beyond the classroom, and it's made it a lot more real and has made sitting in class all day a little bit more exciting if I know that I have an end goal to be helping people, like the work that we're doing through this clinic.
Okay, excellent. Well, and I think the overall message is, again, that this unfortunate events, they're happening, and they're happening in Minnesota. But I think the news of today is that you can do something about this, right? You can take action. We've got the clinic going on. There's so many resources out there to help people. If you're a person out there that wants to get involved, my guess is you'd say do it. Find a way to support an organization, be supportive to women out there. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to say that the clinic and conference on March 23rd is free, and it's open to everybody in the community.
Excellent.
And we invite anybody to come down to help or to learn more about careers in this area and just to get involved.
Okay, great. And why don't you say the website one more time?
worldwithoutgenocide.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all the good work you're doing, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we thank you for being with us today on It's a Woman's World, and we hope to see you next time.